There we go.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
That was a good one. Is it possible that this would involve closing any churches or reducing the size of parish because of the parishes reducing its size?
I would say, to be honest, it has to include the possibility of some consolidations, which would increase parish structures. It would increase the numbers because you'd have less churches. And what that also helps to address is that when communities come together, they themselves have more resources. They have more lectors, more cantors, more people who can serve in the ministries of the parish. So where two individual parishes by their size might not be able to do that together, separately, together they might find themselves in a stronger position. So I don't think it's necessarily going to show less people in a given parish. It may involve some type of working together and consolidation that allows people to come together and share their resources.
Have you gotten that far yet, Bishop, where you're looking at certain parishes that might have to close?
No, absolutely not, and I guess that's what surprises me to have this kind of session now, because I'm just at the beginning. I still have there are 105 parishes and 4 additional churches that are combined with parishes in the Diocese of Saginaw. And I maybe have about 9 or 10 parishes left, mostly in the Thumb area, that I haven't visited in my 2 years, or less than 2 years here. I'm hoping that by my 2nd anniversary, I will have visited all the churches. So I haven't even visited all the parishes. And I've also talked about going forth in the next year to do a more extensive visit of the parishes, to meet with their parish councils and their staff, because usually my visit involves something of a sacramental nature. So absolutely not. I don't have, and I think that you have to be careful that we don't presume that size alone, because for us, location is also an issue too, and the people's ability to sustain themselves in areas. So it's not necessarily that. But to answer your question very clearly, no, I'm just about at the starting gate right now, and I don't know how long a process that'll be.
There's no timeline in place right now?
Not at the present time. I'm sure that as we go forward, and with some type of help to assist us in doing studies like this, I'm sure that we will establish a timeline for our study. But my experience shows me that even once the timeline of the study is set up, the timeline of how the study is implemented sometimes takes longer. So I have absolutely no sense of the timeline. I do know, though, that each year as I move forward, unless the Lord gives me 10 new vocations this year, that it's not going to be getting any easier for our priest to supply the sacramental life to the churches.
I think we just have time for just a couple more questions, because we're running tight on time here.
My last question that I had, just what would you say, Bishop, is the biggest challenges challenge for the Saginaw Diocese?
Now that's a broader question. We have a lot of challenges. I think that would include evangelization. It would include education. It would include mass attendance. I think all of those come together. I think sometimes people who may not be attending mass maybe haven't had the education to truly understand what it is that we're doing there. So when you ask what is the greatest challenge, that opens up a broader perspective. I guess if I could wrap it up into one terminology, it would probably be evangelization. How our people come to know their faith and appreciate their faith more deeply, and by doing that, then how they live it more effectively and more enthusiastically.
Have you hired a consultant firm to help with this, or have you not gotten to that point yet?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. To be honest, I have met with a consulting firm. We have another meeting set up with another consulting firm. The size of the diocese, some dioceses can do this without such firms if they're large enough and have the resources. So we're exploring the option of having somebody come in and help us. Maybe we won't need someone to help us. I don't know at this particular point. But yeah, we're looking, and we're trying to see what would the process like this entail. What would we need to have in place before we would even get on the ship? You know, so I'm not even on the boat yet, let alone in the middle of the water.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for.
Did you get?
Are we?
Did you have some questions?
You kind of answered the ones I was
No,
thinking
no, no.
about. Church attendance was one, and you talked about.
Church
that a little
attendance
bit.
is a serious concern, and I think that if you were to interview Catholics in general, the reasons why people do not, you know, practice their faith in that regard is as varied as the people you would ask. There are some people who have been hurt by the church. There are some people who are angry with a particular leader in the church, you know, at some given time in their life, maybe whatever it might be. There are others who would acknowledge and admit that it's just laziness on their part. It's something that has gotten out of their priority list of priorities. So the reasons are as broad as could be. That's why we as a church need to put our best foot forward, use our resources in the best way to reach out, to reconcile, to pave a smooth way that our people will feel enthused about their faith and come together to worship.
I have one last quick question. Do you think that the announcement at all affects the celebration of Easter week?
No, because if I may, I sort of think it's a non-announcement. I think the press, as I was reading it, I thought, oh my goodness. At least I was grateful for some attention that you gave me. But I think the announcement was premature. I mean, the reporting was premature. No, I don't think so. I think these are things that people, if they don't see this, then they're just not following their parish life. I think there are people in the church in Saginaw who really clearly see this and understand it. So no, I don't think it was. I just think it was an honest explanation. They're going to look and say, gee, I made Father so-and-so the pastor of 5 parishes. What possessed the bishop to do that? Do you know? Or how did I use my 4 newly ordained priests in terms of ministering? They might have questions about that, so I needed to explain that to them. But in all due respect to your own reporting, I don't think there was that story, that you're saying now I'm making this announcement before Easter.
I meant the pastoral assignments announcement, not.
Oh, no, they do this all the time. They did. As a matter of fact, last year, remember Easter was earlier last year, and then it was my first year, and we were a little slow in getting them all together. And my personnel board was anxious that we would do it sooner than later, because that gives everyone who is in a transition a longer period of time to work with their own people whom they're transitioning from, and to work with the staff to whom they're transitioning to. So Father Bill Taylor, who is the chair of our personnel board, he was really encouraging me that as soon as possible in the beginning of April. Now, if this were last year, it would have been after Easter. It's just the calendar.
Thank you, Bishop.